Hello, my name is Brayanoski.
And I'm Awesome Rouse, and you're watching The Inner Gamer On.
Today we'll be talking about the future of the Nintendo Switch. The year of 2020 has been a interesting one for the Switch with not many new titles coming out. So we want to look forward into the future and see what's coming. What do they need to make it relevant again, make it exciting? How are they going to respond to the next gen consoles that are coming out for everybody else? Does it matter? I don't know. Lots of questions to be asked. So let's talk all about it right here on The Inner Gamer.
And as always, if you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and bang that bell, because you know you want to. For the Nintendo, for Mario. Do it. Do it now.
Each week, we dive into a hot topic about video games, and this week we're going to talk about what is the future of the Nintendo Switch. This has been a really interesting year for the Switch because the Switch launched in 2017, had a great launch, hugely successful. Zelda, we got in 2017. We capped off the year with Super Mario Odyssey. Like, it was a huge, huge year for Zelda, or for the Switch. And then 2018 continued that trend with more awesome games. 2019 was also really solid. But then we were starting to wonder after having seen, Luigi's Mansion came out. We had Mario Tennis. We had Super Mario Party. We had Super Smash Brothers. Like, all these big titles that have come out have already, they're here. We've seen them. They're done. They're there. All that stuff. So it's like, what was 2020 going to bring? And beginning of 2020, we knew Animal Crossing was coming. So we got Animal Crossing. That was a huge thing, huge success, especially right at the beginning of quarantine. And then we got Paper Mario back in, I think, July, August, something like that. But that's really it. And, earlier we talked in the news about the 35th anniversary edition of stuff coming out. Some Nintendo titles, obviously the remasters of Super Mario 3D All-Stars, those 3 games. But not a whole lot else. There's no big, huge blockbuster hits from now to the end of the year. And other than that, we've had those 2 titles. So 2020 has been a big lull for them. And it's like, what is the future looking like? Like, what is 2021 going to have? We don't have any release dates or any exciting new announcements. We know that Metroid Prime 4 is in development. But beyond that, there isn't a ton to be excited about. So it's like, what is...
Breath of the Wild 2.
Oh, yeah, Breath of the Wild 2. You're right, yeah. So, I mean, like, right now, what are your thoughts? Like what is a Switch to you right now in 2020, Austin?
I mentioned it earlier. It's just sitting in my living room charging for no reason. There's games in there I wanted to play and finish and stuff. Like, I wanted to jump back into Three Houses, but I mean, I think what made the Switch so successful over the past few years is that for the most part, we didn't have that many heavy hitters across the board consistently coming out. I mean, this year's a little different because COVID and stuff like that, but still, like, I think things were spread out enough where we were able to actually play these games and then move on to the next. You know what I mean? At least from my recollection. So,
talking about, like, generally, like, across the board, not just Switch, but just generally.
Yeah, generally, yeah. Because, like, we'll play like a AAA game on PlayStation 4, and then we beat it, and then it's like, okay, there's like some Switch games to hold me over. Whether it be like a AAA title or something indie, which I think there's a lot more indie games throughout the last few years, that during those small, short lull periods we could play and have some fun, and it's just quick and easy, right, out of the way. And this year we've had, we have a decent amount of games coming out that have been keeping us busy. I think because we're also getting closer to the next generation of consoles, that naturally our focus is on them. And I'm surprised that Nintendo hasn't taken this time to really be like, hey, there's some new indie games coming out, cool new indie games, something really interesting that's worth jumping into, short experiences. And maybe they have, but, again, our attention's kind of on these next generation things.
Yeah. Yeah, they did have about a month ago, I guess. So they had Nintendo Indie World, which was a stream that they did. We didn't cover it on there because there really wasn't a whole lot that I was like super jazzed about. I mean, there's some nice games that were announced through that process, but I mean, it was cool to see, yes, but there wasn't a lot of hype surrounding that announcement, that reveal, and the whole thing.
Right.
And then everybody this whole year was waiting on them to announce it's the 35th anniversary of Mario. What are they going to do? And then it took them up until September to reveal it. And obviously, like, COVID, it's like definitely putting a damper in a lot of things, but it's a year in which Nintendo needs to show their relevancy because they're not bringing out a new console alongside next gen. And by them being this quiet and dormant is kind of concerning for me of like, what are they trying to do to keep themselves relevant through this time as people are talking about all these other consoles? Like their brand identity behind the Switch is kind of like waning, because like I'm in the same boat as you are. Like I've hardly touched my Switch in the last little bit. There hasn't been any super exciting games coming out for it. There are games coming out for it, but I think because of the fact that there's been so many like big AAA titles, that I've also not been as focused on indie titles as I used to be.
Right.
So that's changed a lot of my perception on my usage of the Switch. And there's games that I bought on there that I want to play at some point, but they're back burner games to when there is a lull in my time. But right. There is rumor that there's going to be a Switch Pro of some kind coming out next year. So that maybe the thought of them being so quiet this year is because they're ramping up for that launch and maybe saving stuff for that. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Actually, I was gonna say I think now's a good time to actually think about releasing a console like that, like next fall, once the storms kind of died down for the most part, kind of for these next gen consoles. I think releasing something next fall, showing it at next E3, and launching some awesome games with that. At least one, Breath of the Wild was so drastic in the success of the Switch. Kind of, I mean, the Switch was amazing in itself, but then having Breath of the Wild along with it is definitely like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna get it, right? So seeing something like that come about, like maybe Metroid 4 or something else along those lines would be cool. But yeah, I think they should be thinking about that. They don't need it, yes, but if they're following the trend where they just upgrade 1 second or just like the next little step up for graphics, and get a 1080 out there. Why not?
Yeah, because I mean, in 2017, the Switch was great for what it was. The graphics weren't amazing, but we weren't at the level of quality that we have now. And I feel like there's been a generational shift in the graphic quality, especially since the introduction of ray tracing, and then now the new gen consoles coming out and the promises that they have of what they're going to deliver. That the Switch looks very dated now. It feels dated in a lot of ways, and I think they need some kind of upgrade or enhancement for those power users. I mean, they're still going to keep people on that are, casual. I mean, like our audience, casual gamers, but I mean, casual gamers also tend to want quality stuff too, that keeps them engaged. And I mean, like we often find ourselves playing games that will keep us can focus on a game for a while. And, they don't have many of those on the Switch right now, other than, they have Breath of the Wild, but there isn't a lot that's there to either do that or present some kind of visual fidelity that gets people excited about a thing. And, they still have the issue of like one of the biggest flaws with the Switch was in its own form factor, in that in order for them to have the function of the console to work the way it did, they had to sacrifice the quality of the Joy-Cons. And the Joy-Cons, by all intents and purposes, are not a good controller to use for like 2-player. And you have to basically just have a separate set of controllers to operate it. So I'm curious to see if they do anything to handle that with the next generation, or if they just focus on I'd honestly be happy if the next Pro or whatever was just a bigger screen that played, I'd say 1080p, but I feel like they almost need to have something that does some 4K options in order for it to really kind of take it to the next level.
I think there's magic, or part of their magic is that they can keep a console low price for a bigger audience, a bigger general audience, because they kind of skip out on the graphics that allows them to purchase hardware that's lower cost. Trying to go for the 4K small form factor is going to be really expensive, and I think that's how they really outpace the competition, is that lower barrier of entry cost wise.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't be really upset if they went 1080, but if they could go 2K, I think that's a good middle ground, honestly. I don't know what that looks like. Obviously, technology has changed in the past 3 years. So, I think it's probably doable. And, would you buy... The console was like $300, right?
Yeah.
Would you buy a $400 console for Nintendo?
I would upgrade to have it be high quality graphics. But yeah, I mean, I think, technically right now the Switch is 1080p when it's docked in the TV. It can output that, but it's like, it's weird. I don't know. Like there's something about, I think the utility. I love the utility. I think a lot of it might just be the fact that we're in a time where we're not engaging with our friends as much as we used to in person. And the Switch's benefit is like, hey, let's get a Switch party together and have everybody bring over their Switches and let's play together in a room and play 4-player co-op. And because that's not happening, we're gravitating more, like it's more fun in a sense we're now having more time and availability to sit there and play our consoles or our PCs and those games.
Yeah.
Versus the Switch.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what's kind of hurting it a little bit is that we're not traveling. And when people, like when I hear a lot of like podcasters and stuff like that talk about when they use their Switch, it's when they're on the plane, they're sitting in their hotel room, they're on the subway, they're doing all the things that we can't do right now. And
you're right.
The void is the void that was filling is now not being filled because there's nothing to fill. So it's like crazy to think about that.
Right. No, that was a huge selling point for him. Yeah, that really does suck for them. Maybe they're rethinking their strategy going forward because obviously things have changed. I mean, I think we'll get back to a normal eventually.
I really think that I think the Switch should go the route of Xbox and offer a Game Pass. They have Nintendo Switch Online that does like old school games, but I think they're honestly kind of stupid for not capitalizing on a Game Pass. Like this whole, we've talked about earlier with the 6-month limited edition. Like I don't get the business logic behind that. I can see maybe having some kind of like, hey, this becomes like a relic, down the line. But I think they have such a huge content library of games that never get old that they can offer a Game Pass feature that they charge. Right now they're charging for Nintendo Switch Online, like what, $4.99 or something like that. Charge $15. If you give me $15 a month to play, even $20 a month to have access to like all retro and Nintendo games, hell yeah, I'd buy that. I'd eat that up. Like if you could play SNES, NES, Nintendo 64, like not all the titles, but like the bigger known titles and stuff like that were available on those systems, like I think there would be a huge market for that. But then still sell the titles, because they could rotate if they needed to or whatever, like have a vault system or something of that nature. But I think they could jump in on that and have like a consistent stream of money coming in to help them do some more R&D. Because like the thing with their consoles is like they're always trying to kind of push the envelope and provide a different type of experience with every Nintendo console. Ever since like after the GameCube went to the Wii U, and then the Switch, like they've been vastly different kind of like functions for what they're trying to do. And to take that risk, like you have to have good games to back it up. But if you have the ability to go from the Switch to whatever the next generation is, and you have that Game Pass as part of it, like built into it, it's a lot easier to get to take a risk because you're still getting this revenue coming in, even if that console doesn't launch as well like the Wii U did. You can still have all this money coming in from the subscription service system that you've built, which I think is what the Xbox is basically trying to do. It's like if the Series X doesn't blow up, they have a huge subscriber base that's paying them $10 a month on PC, Xbox One, all that stuff. Like what would be your kind of cap of like, if there's a Nintendo subscription service, like what's the most you would be willing to pay for that?
Because we pay $5 now, right?
Yeah, $4.99.
Yeah. For another $5, I'd do it, I guess.
Yeah.
$10.
It's like, like right now, like have you played any of the Switch like games that are on the little Nintendo Online thing?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. I don't even think about it.
They're not really nostalgic to me. Yeah. I've played them, but it's not like, oh, I want to go back and play them and beat them again. It's just like, we've come so far. Like, I want to deal with what we have now.
Well, in a sense, too, it's like, it's not quite like it's just kind of missed our generation. Like, yes, we were alive during those times, but
yeah,
SNES and stuff like that, like, I don't have nostalgia for that. But for us, it's like the 64. Like, that's the That's the first console that like really hits us hard. So I mean, like, but I mean, honestly though, if GoldenEye 007 was available for me to play, I wouldn't play that either because, like you said, I don't want to go back to that. We've come a long way since then, and I don't want to play those again.
Yeah,
but I know a lot of people out there that would.
Yeah, I mean, great memories for sure. Like I look back all the time. It's like I had a lot of fun with those games, especially with friends.
Yeah,
and stuff. But I mean, at this point, you can't really recreate that. You need to try something new.
Yeah,
and we have a lot to play now, so I mean, we can hardly keep up with it,
dude. Yeah,
as it is.
That's the tricky part. Is like, how do these? Yeah, there's just so many things to do and track. It's like you have to be very choosy about what you do. And with that stuff, you can't really do much with it. But that's why I think, like, having these content libraries of stuff where you kind of pick and choose what you play when you want to play it's kind of nice because you're not going to be able to get everybody to buy every single title anymore. But if you have these titles available in the library, like you can hear a lot of people talk about Game Pass, and they're like, why not play Wasteland 3? Why not play Battletoads? Because it's free. I mean, it's not free, but it's like you're paying for a subscription that's already there. It doesn't hurt to download and try it.
Yeah.
And that's giving you more access to games than ever before, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. I mean, what else? Like, what would get you back in the Switch? Just Zelda Breath of the Wild 2?
Yeah, basically. That or Metroid. I mean, I liked Odyssey, but it's not like I'm kind of over Mario for the most part. Like I enjoyed playing it. Like it was fun, but it's not my type of game, I'm
surprised they've been able to milk Mario as long as they have. It's crazy.
I mean, Nintendo's definitely for like a specific group of people for the most part. I feel like, they try to hit the younger generation. It appeals to them more because of the colors and the game design and stuff. But, there's enjoyable things there for me. I mean, Breath of the Wild is pretty good. Or not pretty good. It's really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you'd really need that for me to come back to it at this point because, and I haven't really seen any indie games that are like, oh my gosh, I got to play that. And, like during that time, we loved playing it because it was just so different and so new and it was nice. I guess it's kind of become novelty at this point.
Yeah. And, on the indie game front, I think that's something that Nintendo's kind of bombed a little bit this year because they were having a pretty solid consistency with their directs. And then now they aren't. And it's like, I think we've seen 3 or 4 of them this year, maybe just 2, honestly, because we had the Indie World, we had the 35th anniversary one. I can't remember. I think there might have been 1 or 2 others. But if they would do something where like every 2 months you knew to expect an indie update of like, here's the indie games you should be looking out for in a direct kind of situation, I think that would be great. And who knows, maybe they do that now. If they do, they don't advertise it very well. But I think that would be really helpful because now we're at a point where when the Switch first launched, the first 2 years of the Switch launching, I was in a rhythm of every single time, like every week, I would jump on the eShop. I'd look through every single game that launched since the previous week to see if there's anything I want to buy. But now there's such a large library, I can't do that. And the system's not built for that large of a volume for me to scan through those games easily and go back in the past and see if there's anything I want to buy. So the discoverability is not there. And they need to figure out how to fix that problem and make it easier to find. Like, start doing some of the Steam systems where they have like the discovery queue and they have all these different, mechanics that allow you to find these games. I think they have a huge library of good content on there that are quick, easy. Like, say you want to jump into the thing and play a $5 game or whatever. You say, I want a $5 game that's going to take me 2 hours to do. Like, give me something. I don't know how that would look or what that would work like, but there's some things that I think they need to work on to make the eShop better. To bring people back into it a little bit.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people just play the Switch too. Like, and that's great. I wish we had someone on who actually just played the Switch to get their opinion of like the current ecosystem. But as everyone knows, or if you don't know, we were really into the Switch for a long time, for the past 3 years. Like it was awesome, especially when all the indie directs would come out. I was like, oh yes, like some of these games look amazing. Like I can't wait to get them and play them. Yeah, and this year changed everything for sure. But I guess we all kind of knew that the new generation was coming for PlayStation and Xbox, so naturally it's easier to hang on to that because not much has deviated, in my opinion, from that launch.
I was shocked they weren't able to get Fall Guys on the Switch at launch. I feel like that was a big miss for them. Of like not, I mean, they obviously didn't know how big that game would get, but they had on PC, they had the PS4 deal. I feel like they should have, like, that game is so ripe and practical for the Switch. I feel like they should have figured out how to get it there. And I hope they do soon, because like people have been talking about like, oh, maybe it should be on it needs to come out on the Xbox. I'm like, screw Xbox, just bring it to the Switch. That's where it needs to be right now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a game I would want to play on the Switch for sure.
And that would add value to the online subscription because, you finally have a game you're playing consistently that you can play on there. But that was surprising to me, but I can't think of any big Nintendo game. I mean, I still want to see a good Star Fox, I think, but I don't know if that's a game that I care about as much as I used to back in the 64 days, Yeah. But maybe so.
Yeah, they do it the right way because I know they went where you actually play as Fox on the ground.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think because a lot of it's like vehicle combat and stuff like that, which is fine.
Yeah,
but they could tell like a really awesome story where your boots on the ground and you get in the plane. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Basically, a No Man's Sky with Fox McCloud.
Yeah.
Nice.
Linear storyline and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. Because next year is kind of a big year for them in that they need to come out swinging in some way because they're competing now against next generation consoles that are going to take a lot of their market share. Whether or not, there's still going to be a huge market of people that are going to play it because they play Nintendo. Like, I have a lot of friends that like that's just what they like to play on because it's easy, simple, fun games.
Right.
And they're very casual, so it makes sense. But I think they do need to find a way to make themselves more relevant to the larger audience in the future because they rode on that. They rode on the fad train of this. I don't want to say that the Switch is a fad, but it kind of was a fad because now we're for whatever reason not playing as much as we used to, and they rode on that for a while, and now they need to do something a little bit different to bring light to it.
I think early next year, maybe mid next year, I think we'll start hearing more from them.
Yeah,
I just think everything's kind of really gone wonky for everybody at this point. So
right.
Hopefully by then everything's a little more back on track, and I think they're able to focus more. Obviously people they have to hire people to make these videos and Nintendo Direct things and record people talking. So that's already an issue for them. And it might not be something they want to take a chance with. So that's why they've been so silent.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. Do you think, kind of closing this out, do you think next generation is going to hurt the Switch? Or do you think they'll kind of like stay the course that they're on right now? With
Xbox
what they have.
Can't do anything.
Do what?
Xbox not going to hurt them. I'll tell you that.
That's true.
I think next year, up until next fall, I don't think it will. It will and it won't. Like it's going to hurt them, but I don't think it's going to hurt them
as much as you'd expect
because there's not that many like new gen games coming out or next gen games really.
True.
Launching. There's only a handful, and until next fall, then we'll probably get some more heavy hitters. And at that point, they're going to want to make some waves because, who knows where we'll be at that point.
Let us know what y'all thought about the Nintendo Switch. If y'all are still playing it, I'm very curious to know who's still playing and what you're playing. I'm sure a lot of people are still jumping into Animal Crossing. But I'm curious to know, like, give us your opinions on the future of the Nintendo Switch. Do you think it will continue on, or like what does it need to reinvigorate the brand or the hardware? What could bring it out there? Would it be a game? Would it be a new console system? Or are you still playing all the time and you're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about, they're freaking crazy? Let us know in the comments below, wherever you're watching or listening.